I would like for you all to join me today as we try our very best to get into the head of Abraham when he was asked to sacrifice his son Isaac. For the sake of this sermon, let's imagine that I, like Abraham, am 75 years old. I have been retired from Holy Trinity Lutheran Church for 10 or so years, and I have since moved to Nashville, Tennessee to be with my son Aaron and his wife. Let's say that 10 or so years from now, when I am 75, Aaron has a couple of kids, and they're our grandkids, and we love them very much. And we are enjoying our retirement in Nashville. I know many of you have been there and experienced Nashville. It's a wonderful and exciting town, a wonderful place to be. And I'm enjoying my retirement there. I'm enjoying my son and my daughter-in-law and my grandchildren. And Ginger and I are enjoying our new church there. And it is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful retirement. And in the night, God comes to Ginger and I and says that, Ron, I know you think we're done, and I know you are enjoying your retirement, but there is a church that is in dire straits right now. They lost their pastor in a tragic accident, and they are devastated. I think you would be a good person to help that church deal with this tragedy and to give them hope again. So I would like for you and Ginger to move from where you are to Elbow Lake, Minnesota. It has a population of 1,225 people. It is in western Minnesota, very remote, and the name of the church is United Lutheran Church. They need you. I know how you feel about Minnesota. I know you know about the mosquitoes. I know you know about the winters there. But put aside all that and realize that I need you there. They need you there. I go. Ginger and I leave. Think about how difficult that might be for you to leave retirement, for you to leave your only son, your only grandchildren, and start ministry all over again at 75. Ginger and I go. We go to Elbow Lake. We go to United Lutheran Church there. And we find a congregation filled with gifted people, but who have lost hope, lost sight of their call to do ministry in that particular place. Well, for the next 15 years, we have an outstanding ministry in this particular congregation. I am now 99 years old. I'm almost 100. Ginger, my wife, is 90 years old. She's 89, almost 90. And God comes to us in the night and says, Ron, Ginger, I know how badly you miss your son Aaron. I know how badly you miss your grandchildren. This is what I'm going to do. Ginger, you in a year from now are going to have a son. And this son will be an answer to your prayers. You will love this son will love you. You will be able to enjoy Minnesota, the lakes, the hunting, the fishing with this new son. And it will fill that hole that has been in your soul for the last several years. And so in a year, a child is born. Wonderful child. We raise the kid till he's about 9 or 10 years old, and we have a lovely relationship with this young man. He has been a great gift from God to us. And then when he's 10 years old, God comes again. And he said, Ron and Ginger, I want you to give your son up. I want you to offer him back to me as a sacrifice for all the blessings that I have given to you and Ginger during the past many, many, many years. This is the story of Abraham. He was 75 years old when he lived in Haran with his family. He had all kinds of family. He had no children. He and Sarah were without children. But his family was there. His cousins, his brothers, his sisters, his wealth, everything that Abraham knew was right there. And he was 75 years old, and God came to him and said, Abraham, I want you to leave this place and go to Canaan, which is now Israel. And I'm going to give you this land, and I'm going to be with you, and I'm going to bless you. As you saw in the text, if you would read this in chapter 12, Genesis, Abraham did not say one single word. He packed up his belongings, he packed up his family, and he moved as the Lord had directed him. Later on, when he was 99 years old and Sarah was 89 years old, there was a 10-year difference there. God came to Abraham and said, Abraham, I know, as you know, that one of the worst things that could happen to a Jewish man is he not have a son to carry on his legacy. You and Sarah have been without a son, but I'm going to change that. Even at 99 and her at 89, you are going to have a year from now a son, and I want you to call him Isaac. Abraham did have a few comments to make then, and Sarah, like we did a few moments ago, was in the back of the tent, and she was laughing. And I understand that, I think. But imagine you ladies here at 89 being told you're going to have another baby. Think about that a minute. Wouldn't you laugh? I think it would be a normal human response to laugh. Sarah denied it, but she laughed because she thought, God has asked us to do some strange things in the past. But for me to have a baby at 89, I think he's just kind of pushed the envelope a little bit too far. However, a year from then, Sarah had what they had wanted for so long, a little boy, to carry on Abraham's name, to carry on Abraham's legacy. And so Abraham raised this kid, Isaac, and he was a good boy, a good kid, a good son. And then a few years later, God comes to Abraham and said, for a test of his faith and his obedience, I want you to sacrifice your son to me as an offering of appreciation for all the blessings that you have known in your long life on this earth. In this text, Abraham did not say a word. He took Isaac to the mountain that God had directed him to and got to this point where he had the knife raised to offer up the sacrifice of his son to the God that had blessed him so much during the past 100 and so years. But at that point, an angel of the Lord told Abraham to stop. God has seen your loyalty. He has seen your obedience, and he has seen the depth of your faith. And so Abraham looked to the wooded area nearby the altar, and he saw a ram who was caught in a thicket by its horns. And the the angel said, use this ram as a sacrifice instead of your son. Now, we may get into the head of Abraham today, but my question is it possible to even imagine that kind of faith, loyalty, and obedience to God. Every seminary you might want to go to has their own way of looking at Scripture. The seminary I went to taught us to look at the book of Genesis and in several other places in the Old Testament as a collection of sermons given by Jewish rabbis to their congregations to make a point. Whether Abraham, Isaac, Sarah, and all these stories are for real is not the point. The point is, what does the Jewish rabbi want to say to his congregation with the story of Abraham and Isaac in his hands? And now today, what point do I want to make to you as those people who have come here today to hear about the story of Abraham and Isaac? This is the message, I think, came from the rabbi to his congregation. First of all, every human being that walks on this earth will be tested. Your faith, your loyalty, and your obedience to God will be tested. We have been tested, we are being tested, and we as human beings in relationship with God through faith in Jesus Christ will continue to be tested. Now, is it God that tests us, or is it life itself that brings about these tests? That's not the point. The point is we are being tested, and how do we respond to these challenges that we face in life? I have faced the possibility in my own life on Christmas Eve of hearing that I might lose my own son. We were hoping and praying that the tumor that they removed from his abdomen was for sure benign. The surgeon looked at it in the operating room and told us in the waiting room that this is a benign tumor, I'm almost positive. A few days later, which was Christmas Eve, the nurse comes into Aaron's room and says to us that Dr. Einhorn will be in to speak with you in a few moments. Dr. Einhorn is not a surgeon. Dr. Einhorn at IUPUI in Indianapolis is an oncologist. He is a specialist in Aaron's type of cancer. The room fell dead silent because had the tumor been benign, Dr. Foster would have come to see us, the surgeon, and he would tell us everything's fine. Dr. Einhorn walks into the room, and I said, is this another tumor like the ones before? He said, no, the cancer has changed. And I was watching Aaron, my son, torn up by the surgery, looked at him and said, Dr. Einhorn, is this type of cancer that I now have life-threatening? And Dr. Einhorn said, unfortunately it is, but we have a plan of attack. That night, the chaplain, this is Christmas Eve, and God bless this woman for working on Christmas Eve, hears about Aaron and the announcement that he had heard earlier on Christmas Eve, and so she shows up at Aaron's room. At that point, I am very angry with God because, you know, I'm a man of faith, I've been a preacher, I've been loyal, I've been obedient, all this kind of stuff. And I was telling God in no uncertain terms, you really let me down. You broke my heart. What has Aaron ever done to deserve this? And so when the chaplain showed up in our room late on Christmas Eve, I turned my back on her and walked away. And I said as I walked away, I don't want to talk to anybody about anything that has anything to do with God, and walked down the hall. Ginger stayed, as I should have. And this chaplain talked to her about the story of Abraham and Isaac. And you know how the story of Abraham and Isaac comes to an end. God provided the sacrificial ram for the sacrifice. And what this means, if I had stood around long enough to hear this chaplain tell it again, I would have realized that she was going to remind me of the name of this mountain. On the mountain of the Lord, it will be provided. And that is the good news of the story of Abraham and Isaac. And whatever challenge you might have in your life yesterday, today, and tomorrow, God will provide us an opportunity to get through whatever that challenge might be. It's always with God a wonderful, wonderful end, whether it is here in this life or in the life of the world to come. So the message from the rabbi to his congregation, from Pastor Grunke to his congregation, is this. Let us all, and I'm talking to myself as well, let us all remember in the midst of life's challenges that we live on the same mountaintop as Abraham. We live in the same kind of relationship with God that Abraham had. And the angels of the Lord are all over us now, just like they were with Abraham. And no matter what that challenge might be, how painful it might be, we must remember that we are on the mountain that is called It Will Be Provided. Amen. Let us stand.